What different ways have we learned to factor so far?
Oil.
That's not factoring.
GCF.
GCF? Okay, so what is GCF?
Greatest common factor.
What? Okay. What is that?
The greatest.
What is that?
Finding the greatest number that goes in between. What's the biggest
Yes.
number?
The biggest number that goes into two or more numbers, right? Okay. What was the second way we learned how to factor? We did it yesterday and the day before.
Square root plus bx plus c.
And what's that called? If it has three terms, what's it called? Trinomial. Okay. And our leading coefficient on a trinomial was what that we've factored so far? So out front of x is a 1. Fantastic. All right, so today what we're going to learn how to do is we're going to learn how to factor when there's a number out front of x squared. So yesterday we wrote down our star and we wrote down our steps. So you'll do the star every single time. Step 1 is you multiply a times c together and then you factor c, just like we've been doing. Step 2 is you figure out which pair adds to get b. So we're still doing that. It's still the same thing. The only thing that changes this time is we have to reduce a fraction and then put in parentheses. So we're going to use the star to help us reduce our fraction. Is everybody ready? Do we need to color our ninjas? Is that what we need to do? Okay. Color your ninjas. Now next week you're going to be working in pairs and you are going to have, I'm going to give you a generic form of a trinomial like this. And you're going to have to come up with 3. You're going to have to factor it and then you're going to have to list for me the steps for your specific trinomial. So you will need a poster board next week. You will be in pairs with the people at your table. That way we don't have to move around. If you're at a table of 3, you'll work with all 3 of you. If you just really want to do it by yourself, I mean, that's optional, but that's like the last resort. You need a poster board Tuesday.
Is this like, are we going to do it just in class or at class?
Both. It'll be due Friday. So hopefully you get it done before then. And it's going to be a wanted poster. You're going to have to put wanted, why it's wanted, stuff like that, like I've done before. Are we done coloring our ninjas? We have 3 minutes of ninja coloring. Yeah. It cannot be a half poster. I'm going to give you the details next week. Ready? Okay. All right, so our first one that we're going to do, example 1, we're going to practice this one together. All right, I want to do 3x squared plus 17x plus 10. Now we're going to use our star every single time, and we're going to fill it in as we go. So the first thing you have to do when you factor these is you have to look and see if there's a GCF of our 3 numbers. Is there a GCF of 3, 17, and 10? No, there's not. All right, so then you look and see if the number out front is 1. Is the number out front 1? No. So since we don't have, since none of those work, we're going to use our star method. I want you to draw the star underneath step 2. Now, step 1 says to multiply a times c and then factor. So we're going to multiply 3 times 10 and we're going to write it up top. Because in our big star at the top, that's where it tells us to write it every time. So a times c goes up top. What's 3 times 10?
30.
Alright, then we put b on bottom. What's our b? 17. Now, we are still doing the same rules from last time with your signs and with the fact that you multiply to get C, add to get B. We are still doing that. So, if C is positive, we look at B. All signs must match B. So, both of our factors are going to be what? Positive. Now, we need to list all the numbers that multiply to get 30, and we need to find one that adds to get 17. What do you think that would be? 15 and 2. Why would 10 and 3 not work?
You don't add to get 17.
It doesn't add to get 17. Why would 6 and 5 not work? Why would 30 and 1 not work? Why does 15 and 2 work? Look at us go. Alright, now I want you to write 15 on the bottom and 2 on the other side. Now, what does it say goes in our top up here? A. And what is A? 3. So everybody write a 3 up top. Now, we're going to go ahead and write both of our parentheses. We're going to write it under ta-da, under step 3. Now, you have to reduce your fraction. The way you do that is you cover up the middle, and you see how I have 2 fractions on, well, I'm going to use my pinky finger because I got big fingers. So, you see how we have fractions on either side? Which of those does not reduce? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put it in our parentheses over here, and it's going to be 3x plus 2.
So you don't want us to make it a bucket?
No. We don't. That part we're not worried about. You reduce it so that you can figure out what your factors are that go in your parentheses. So you take the top and it goes out front, and you take the bottom and it goes to the right. That's a great question. All right, now, does 3/15 reduce? What goes into both 3 and 15? 5 does not go into 3, y'all. What goes into both 3 and 15? All right, 3 divided by 3 is? 15 divided by 3 is? So do we have to write a 1 out front? So we write x plus 5, and we're done. Now, I know that may be a little confusing, but we're going to walk through it again. Is everybody ready? Alright, so the first thing we do is we multiply A times C, and then we factor it after we put it in our star. So we multiplied 3 by 10, and we got 30. We put 30 on top, 17 on bottom. So we needed 2 numbers that multiplied together give us 30, added to give us 17, and that's 15 and 2. Is everybody with me so far? Okay. Then we put the A's on top of our star. Why did we use 15 and 2 again?
Because that's what equals 17.
Yes.
Oh, you didn't have to say this.
I don't really know what you said, to be honest.
Because those are the greatest ones. Because they multiply to get,
They add to get 17.
and they had these.
Yes, okay. And then we put A on top. And then the last thing we did was we covered up the middle and reduced our fraction. Now, why did we just leave 3 and 2 like that?
Because 3 can't go into 2.
And 2 can't go into 3. And then we reduced this and we put them in our parentheses. And that's it. Yes.
So what if on the top where it says 3 over 2, what if it's like 4 over 2? Wouldn't we do that?
Yes.
So
But it's not over anything. Because we're not cows. And if both... Yes.
Could you please ask Hannah Hellman to stop by the main office and pick something up?
Yes. Hannah, will you stop by the main office and pick something up? Can you wait? We'll be done in just a few minutes. Alright. So if you have to reduce both sides, then that means that this has a GCF and you need to factor out the GCF first. Alright, let's do one more together and then I'm going to let you do one without me. So everybody ready? So I'm going to turn my paper over. This is going to be exam 50 potatoes. Thank you. And example 2. Factor each, Blair. trinomial. Alright, so I want to go crazy with sandwiches. Okay. 3x squared minus 10x plus 8. Now, we're going to do this one together, just because I want to practice one more together, then I want you to do one without me, okay? Now, the first thing we look for is GCF. Is there a GCF of these three numbers? Nope. All right, so then we look and see if I'm trying. If A equals 1, does A equal 1? Nope. So if we don't satisfy either of those, we use the star method. Everybody draw your star. Now, if you don't remember what goes into both, rewrite your star on the side of your paper. Write that A times C goes here. B goes here. What goes on the bottom? Factors. Factors. And what goes on top? A. Fantastic. If you answered any of those, take a point.
Oh, let's take it. Oh, angle.
Alright, we ready? What's step 1? What do we need to do first?
Multiply 8 times 6.
Alright, and that's 3 times 8, which is?
24.
I don't know what you're saying.
He said 25.
20 foe? You have 20 enemies? Because foe is an enemy, not a number. It's not. It is not a number. Alright, what goes on bottom? Negative 10. Alright, we need two numbers that multiply together to give us 24 and add to give us negative 10. Hannah? Negative 6 and negative 4. Now, why do they both have to be negative?
Because
We have learned something. Take a point, children. Alright, so let's write negative 6 over here, negative 4 over here. It really does not matter which way you write them. Okay, what goes on top of our star? And what is A?
3.
Woo! Now, which fraction does not reduce?
3 and 4.
3 and negative 4. So we put that in our parentheses. The top number always goes out front. So 3x minus 4.
Wouldn't it be negative 3x? Because the fraction, the denominator.
The negative is on the 4. This time, the fraction isn't, the whole thing isn't negative. This is on the 4. That's a great question. And plus, if we did that, think about it this way, Cheney. We're trying to multiply to get positive 3, right? So if that 3 was negative, what would this number have to be?
Negative.
Okay? And that would mess up our adding and subtracting of the whole thing. Alright, now what is 3 6 reduced to?
1 negative 1 and 2.
1 and negative 2. Alright, so how do I write it?
X minus 2.
And we're done. Circle it, heart it, baby Jesus it. Please let me know that that's your answer in some way, shape, or form. Do you want to do one more together, or you want to try without me? Are you sure?
Yes, it's mine.
Alright, can I throw one in that has a negative for C? Yes. You still use the same rules. Guys, you still use the same rules. And if you don't remember what those rules are, look back at your notes. And I also wrote it on the paper at the front. I will move it up so everybody can see it. How about I do both as positive just to be safe?
Yeah, that's a nice idea.
But I'm going to give you big numbers since I'm doing that. Are we afraid of big numbers? No, we are not afraid of big numbers because we're pre-AP. So what did we do first?
Multiply 8 times
And you got 120? And you add to get 34, right? All right, what two numbers did you get that multiply to give you 34? I mean, multiply to... Okay. All right, what goes on top of your star? Which fraction did not reduce?
So the fraction that does not reduce those first ones.
It doesn't have to. I could put it behind. So I could say 5x plus 4. And then up here, x plus 6. It doesn't matter which order you put them. Now, where did we get the 6 from?
Divided by 6.
We reduced this to 1/6. All right, are we ready to look at one with a negative? Okay. Two x squared minus 3x minus 9. Now, our rules say that if C is positive, the factors match the sign of B. They also say that if C is negative, we look at B. And our big factor matches what? Our big factor is negative if B is negative. Awesome. Take a point. So, since this guy is negative, our big factor is negative. The reason is we have to add to get a negative number. Now, first thing we do is we multiply 2 times negative 9, and what does that give us? Negative 18. All right, what number goes on the bottom of our fraction? Negative 3. And then we can go ahead and write our A's in if you want to. Now, we need two numbers that multiply together to give us negative 18, and the big factor has to be negative. So what two numbers multiply to give us 18? Negative 9 and 2, and negative 18 and 1, right? Now, which of those add to give us negative 3? So those go in the bottom. Which fraction does not reduce? So it's 2x plus 3. And then what does 2 6 reduce to? So then it's x minus 3, and you're done. So is that really any more difficult? No, you just have to remember your rules. Yes, ma'am.
What did you say earlier about if the first number is equal to 1?
If the first number, if A is equal to 1, you do what we did yesterday and the day before. So where you just find two numbers that multiply to give you C and add to give you B. So if this is 1, that's called easy method. You don't have to use the star. So you just get two numbers to multiply to give you B, or C, add to give you B. Since we have a number that is equal to something, we use the star method. Great question. All right, you want to try another one without me? Let's go crazy. I should give you one that's like really difficult just to be fun, but I won't. I don't like any of these. You do know that if you can't factor it, it's called prime, right?
No.
If you can't factor it, it's called prime. Just a fun fact.
Numbers can only be divided by 1 another.
Correctamundo. Take a point. Ooh, let's do one like these. Let's do 6x squared plus 22x minus 18. Now, what do we need to look for first? Greatest common factor. And what's our greatest common factor? Is there one? 2. Alright, so everybody factor out of 2. If I divide everything by 2, what's left on the inside?
3x squared plus 11x minus 9.
Okay. Now, from here, you still use the star method, but instead of multiplying 6 times 18, you're going to multiply 3 times negative 9.
And do you like cancel out the 2 or do that?
It stays on the outside of your parentheses, and you just ignore it for a moment.
So you want me 3 times negative 9?
Yes. Yeah. Now, the reason we do 3 times negative 9 is because we factored out a 2. So remember, our greatest common factor was 2. We brought it to the outside. We ignore everything else. Yeah. You're fine. So, alright, so since you factor out the 2, you ignore the 2, and you just use the star method on what's on the inside. So you would do 3 times negative 9, and that's what goes in your top. 11 goes in the bottom, and 3 goes on the outside. So now you have the GCF gone. You just write it down here and pretend like it's not there. Okay? So try that one without me. And remember, watch your negatives. Are you dying over there, child of mine? Oh, I should pause it. Well, at least you had some practice with it being prime. Which goes well because we did just talk about that a second ago. So now try it. So I know none of you ever make mistakes ever. Y'all are perfect angels.
We're just playing.
Super sorry.
Oh.
Alright, so we got negative 12 and 11, 3 and 3, and you got negative 12 and 1.
I got
So, positive 12 and negative 1. So 3x minus 1, x plus 4. Woo! Alright, your homework sheet. Let me borrow this for a moment, please, madam. Your homework sheet has a bunch of problems on the front. And then if you turn it over, all the answers are on the back. Look at that. So what you're going to have to do to work this out is you're going to have to factor it on a separate sheet of paper. Then you find your factors here and put it on the front and then mark it out. So one factor goes in D swan, the other factor goes in D swan, and then you're done. D swan. Thanks. Any questions before you leave me? Yes. That's what I was about to tell you to do. No, y'all are not about to leave now, so you can go ahead and get started and make sure you work together.
What about that t-shirt?
They'll be here after spring break.